Welcome back to Holding the Harvest. I'm your host, Sarah Esposito, and today I'm sitting down with a local mom, wife, educator, marathon runner, and fierce advocate who has turned the hardest chapter of her life into purpose. We are talking about motherhood, resilience, staying strong through unimaginable challenges, and what it looks like to fight not only for your own child, but for children everywhere. From her son surviving childhood cancer to her now advocating for awareness, research, funding, and answers, this conversation is one of strength, heart, and using your voice when it matters most. Please welcome Dana Grasso to Holding the Harvest. Thank you for coming, Dana.
Sarah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad that you were willing to do this with me. I love having different moms on here. And like I said, in every episode, it's just really nice to talk to people that are easy to talk to. So thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Thanks. So to start, if someone were to meet you for the very first time, what would they know first about you?
So it would be being a mom. I would say that being a mom influences every decision that I make about my career, about my role as an advocate, and just my overall daily decisions and thinking about how my children would view these decisions and what time am I taking away from them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like as soon as anyone becomes a mom, it's like immediately it's whatever decision you make now, it's for your children. And that's a good or bad, really, at the end of the day, Yeah. What version of busy would you consider yourself right now?
Very busy. I would say just my boys. I remember feeling that we were very busy when my boys were little. I would pick them up. We would come home and, I felt like the evenings were very busy, but now it's a different busy because they're both involved in different sports. So we have soccer, karate, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, cross country, track, travel soccer. So there's just so much going on and it's a lot to balance. So I would say it's very busy, but I really have been trying to focus on instead of, because I feel as though the weekend we try to incorporate, we'll rest on Sunday or we'll rest on Saturday. Really don't have a day. So I'm like, well, let me just take 30 minutes and just sit down and read a book or just sit down and relax. So trying to find calm moments here and there, but it's a very busy season.
Yeah. So it doesn't get slower. I'm learning. I feel like I'm in like a different kind of busy just because my kids are so needy right now. And we are in T-ball and then Augie does soccer in the fall. So like that's like once a week for like 6 weeks. So it's like 45 minutes of our day for like 6 weeks. But yeah, Lena is in T-ball and that's like twice a week. And I just feel like, I'm like, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Because I can't keep up. So I can't imagine all of those different things. But at the same time, it's like keeping yourself moving all the time is also a good thing too. You're not at a standstill. Your kids obviously are not bored.
No, they're always occupied.
Yeah. Do they sleep at night?
So they do sleep at night. They kind of give me a hard time, but I make them go to bed at 9, but they are up very early, between 5:30 and 6 every day. They're very early risers like me. So
yeah, mine are too. Mine are up very early. 6:30. I haven't hit the 5:30 mark, but I mean, if me and Gina were up early, I can't imagine having kids that are going to sleep in. So yeah. So let's talk about your career first, and then we'll obviously jump into motherhood. So you are a professor, but you basically, we could talk about your educator aspect because you've worked with all different ranges of ages. So what kind of got you started with wanting to become an educator?
So I wanted to go to school for psychology, my undergrad. And my dad was like, no, I really think you should go for education. And I was like, okay, I'll try it out. So I did my undergrad at Newman University in Pennsylvania. And when I started there, they were like, oh, it's only a few more classes to get your teacher of students with disabilities certificate. And at that point, I was like, well, I think I want to work with elementary students, but it's only a couple of courses. So I will, I'll take the courses. And then I did my student teaching in an in-class resource setting, which some students have disabilities and some do not. And then this was back in the day when you applied for a job, you had to go to the newspaper. So I saw that this school called the Yale School was hiring a paraprofessional back in 2009. So I started off my career there in the Yale School. This particular location, Southeast, serves students with autism spectrum disorder. So started off my career there as a paraprofessional and then became a teacher. I worked there for 3.5 years. It was an ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis program. So we really supported the students with life skills instruction, academic instruction, that sort of thing. And then Tony and I decided that we wanted to start a family, but the Yale School did not allow you to take the summers off. So I decided, well, maybe I want to get into public school type setting. So Haddon School District, which was about 20 minutes up the road, was hiring a self-contained teacher. And what they were doing is they were pulling back students that were sent to out-of-district placements like Yale, Bankbridge, Bancroft, and they were pulling them back to their home district and creating a program. That way they could be with their peers and they could be in their home school. So I was hired for that position. I had students age, some of them, the day that they turned 3, they would come into my classroom. And I even did some job coaching while there. So I worked with a 20-year-old male at Cinemark Movie Theater, and we worked on increasing his independence with work skills. I was there for 5 years, and then I transitioned over to Hamilton just because Travis was getting ready to go into preschool, and it was hard to work 40 minutes from home and be able to, attend different parties and just be there for them at pickup and things. So they were actually hiring a self-contained teacher, but they actually hired me for an in-class resource. So I was in-class resource, 5th grade math, science, and social studies. And so same thing, the majority of students were general education and some had disabilities. And I really, really enjoyed my time there. And it provided me with a completely different perspective to consider because the other settings that I was in were more restrictive. And so I definitely gained a lot from each of those experiences. And then Stockton University was hiring what they call a teaching specialist of special education. So someone to teach undergraduate, graduate courses about disabilities, work with pre-service teachers, and also with teachers who are going back for their master's in special education or getting their teacher of students with disabilities certificate through the state of New Jersey. So yes, working with and advocating for individuals with disabilities is my career has been focused on.
Yeah. So now basically you're teaching people to become teachers, right? Yes. Like that's what you're doing. Yeah. So that's really cool. And I remember when I came to you about my son, so with his speech delay, and I was talking to you all about the self-contained classrooms and the inclusion classrooms, and you were giving me all the education on that. So I feel like teachers are very underrated. I think nurses are also very underrated. And it takes a special skill and a special heart to do what you do, especially working with children that are disabled. It's I can't really finding the word for it. It's something that is, it's destined in you. Like it's something that you have to be destined for. So I commend you for that. And you worked all over the place. I did not know that you worked for the Yale School. I met you after your kids were only a few years ago. So
yes, I've been all over.
To hear all the different jobs that you've worked at. I just know you at at Hamilton and then Stockton.
Yes.
So that's really cool. Do you, is it the difference between teaching little kids versus adults? What is obviously the biggest difference is age, but what would you say besides that?
I would say that there are some differences, but I would say that definitely a lot of students benefit from support. And so I think because I had that experience in working with students with disabilities and also students that experience a significant amount of trauma, that general education students as well. So I think that kind of helps me to, see the bigger picture and work with students and support them through various phases of their academic careers. But I do miss my time in self-contained. I really, really have such special memories there and just watching the students grow. So speaking from experience is really helpful, but similar yet different, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And how long have you been at Stockton?
This is my 4th year.
Your 4th year. Okay. Yeah. Wow. So it's been 4 years now.
Yes.
That's a while. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, would you say that the students being adults now, can they just text you and be like, hey, I have a question? Or do you have strict email only?
So I have email. Sometimes they will email me in the middle of the night if they're panicked or things
Yeah, like
But I have emergencies. I am willing to share my number. Like, if, there's an emergency and they say you can't send
yeah,
an assignment or something. But yeah, majority
yeah.
try to email correspondence.
Yeah. So you do like the whole syllabus thing. Like you write up like a syllabus for them. Like it's giving me PTSD thinking about college and how I had a syllabus for every time I'd walk into a classroom for the beginning of the semester. That is so funny. That's cool. Um, so aside from your teaching, something else that is really strong presence in your life is running. And how long have you been a runner, would you say?
So I did track in high school, but I wasn't very serious about it. And then
Mhm.
not long after I had Ben, I exercised a lot. I feel like I did a lot of, um, I used to go to the gym prior to children, and then that became a little difficult once I had the boys.
I get
Yeah.
that.
So
Yeah.
I started running. And I remember the first time I ran, I couldn't even make it to the stop sign at the end of my road. And I was like, oh, wow, I don't think I'm a runner. But I just kept slowly increasing. And then I still meet up with some friends, usually around 4:45, 5 o'clock. We meet up in the morning and start to run. So I was running with one of my friends that I worked with at Hamilton, Katie Lutz, and she was like, oh, let's start to do 5 milers. And so I was like, wow, that's a long distance. So we started to do five
Mhm.
milers. And then after about a year of that, she was like, oh, why don't we train for a half marathon? And I was like, I can't run a half marathon. And she was like, yes, you could. You could do it. And so
Yeah.
we worked together for that. And then unfortunately, COVID happened. So we wound up
Okay.
doing virtual around the town half marathon. It was really funny. Um, yeah, it was really funny.
That's neat.
And then after that, I was like, maybe I'll start to train for a full marathon. And so I bought a book and started the cycle of training with that. And yeah, it was really intense and it required a significant amount of time. I'd have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to try to get my long runs in on weekends. So I would gear up with my
Mhm.
vest. I have these little bladders that I wear in my running vest, full of water, and I bring all my gels, headlamp, and I would start
Mhm.
off running and just try to get sometimes like a 15 to 20 mile run in to prepare.
Okay.
So yeah, it definitely, I've done it twice. I'm taking a break right now because I'm working on my dissertation, which is a marathon in itself. But I
Yep.
definitely want to get back into it. It's very therapeutic for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Running, I have Peloton, so I have the treadmill Peloton, and Kirsten Ferguson is one of the trainers on there, and she's like, "If you can jog for a minute, like you are a runner." And I'm like, "Kirsten, stop talking me up. Like I know I am not a runner. I know I'm not a runner. This is the girl I'm sitting in front of is a runner. Dana, you are
You
a
are a
runner."
runner. You won
I did.
place in 5K last year.
Wait, I did
Yeah.
do that. I did do that. I
So you
I
are a
did do
runner.
that, and I was 20 weeks
Yeah.
pregnant when
That
I
was
did that.
amazing.
Um, that was a hard one too because remember how hilly
Yes.
that was?
Yes. I do.
That was and I remember you saying that was challenging, so I was like, "If she's saying it's challenging, it's
It is.
challenging." I think I came in 3rd for my age
It was
group, and
amazing.
I was like and you had to medal too, and I was like, "Alright, we're getting a
Yes.
picture together because the marathon runner and me are getting a photo with medals."
Definitely have to get a picture.
Yeah, so running, you would say running keeps I would say for you, running probably keeps you grounded when it comes to any kind of stressors, like, that is one of your ways to cope with stress, right?
Absolutely. Even, big versus little stress. Like sometimes I'll be working through something at work, like with my dissertation writing, and I'm kind of stuck. And I'll
Mhm.
just step away from
Yeah.
the laptop. I'm like, all right, let me just go for a run around the block. I'll kind of clear my
Mhm.
and I generate a lot of thoughts that way. Or
Yeah.
if I'm feeling, either really grumpy or that sort of thing, it definitely is a great way to boost endorphins. Or some of the most challenging times in my life, which we'll talk about in a little bit, definitely helped me to work through that as well. So I'm very grateful for running.
Yeah. Have you found that different times in, like, your menstrual cycle, you can run longer and better than different times? Like like, I feel like that, like, has a lot to do with
Yes,
your energy in general, but
absolutely.
with running, like yeah.
Yeah. So definitely around the time where my menstrual cycle is happening, I am
Mhm.
slower and I tend to get migraines on the regular, just hormonally. I
Okay.
haven't figured out why or a remedy for them. But when I
Okay.
run, it exacerbates them. So it's one of those things where it's like, I know I'm going to feel good from the run, but at the same time, I might get a migraine and then
Might pay for
I'm
it.
working all day and it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, especially when I'm in a cycle, no matter what, my legs always feel so heavy.
Yes.
And I can't do like a leg day
No.
during that time. I have to focus on either walking or like arm
Yeah.
workouts because my legs get really heavy. And I just noticed that, I guess, since I've had the baby, because now that like my cycles are back and all, and I just have noticed like lately whenever I do get my period, my legs get so heavy like whenever I try to do a workout. So I was interested to see, like, so I guess probably when you're like ovulating is probably when you're like the most energetic and running,
Yeah,
right? I
I'd
feel
say
like that's
probably
like
right after, maybe the week after that, because sometimes I'm
okay.
crampy during that time. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Neat. Interesting. Yeah, your cycle obviously lines up with everybody's moods too.
It's so cool. Yeah.
You know? So, going into motherhood, we love to talk about motherhood here. So, you have two boys. Why don't you tell me a little bit about them and what their interests are right now?
Sure. So Travis just turned 12, which I can't believe I'm saying that. He's
No.
definitely in the preteen phase of life, which I never prepared myself for. So it's like a little like in the morning, I'm like, "Good morning, Travis." I smile at him. He's like, "Oh my goodness, are you laughing at me?" Like sometimes he's very grumpy in the morning. So I'm not ready for this
Yeah.
phase. It's a little tough. But
Uh-huh.
Travis is my outdoorsman. Very, very excited that we share a lot of similar interests. So he joined the cross country team in the fall and he did really well. And I asked him the other day because we did a 5K this weekend in LBI and he took second place for his age group. And I said, "Trey, do you
Nice.
enjoy running?" And he's like, "No." He was like, "I just like the satisfaction it brings." I'm like, "Okay, so you do enjoy it."
You
Yeah.
enjoy it. Yeah.
So yeah, he loves to run. He does travel soccer too, which he's been on that team for a couple of years now, and he loves that with all of his friends from school. He does scouts. So scouts is a huge commitment. Like this weekend, him and my husband Tony are leaving Friday night to hike
Mhm.
7 miles up a mountain. They're going to sleep in a tent and then hike 7 miles down. So he's really into outdoor scouting as well. And yeah, in his spare time, he loves hanging out with his friends. They go to the pizza shop on Fridays. They walk there from the middle school. And he also enjoys video games and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
Trav. And then Ben is 9. He'll actually be 10 at the end of this month, which is also weird to think that both of my children are going to be
Crazy.
digits. Um,
I know. Wow.
and Ben is very energetic. He's into a lot of different things. So he does karate
Mhm.
right now. He does scouts as well. Um,
Okay.
he also is doing rec soccer. Ben is just always full of joy and excited to try new things. So he'll try different sports, he'll try different activities. And I would say he always kind of is down for anything.
Yeah. Now, does Travis ever run in the morning with you when you do your
He
runs?
hates to run in the morning right now. So I'll tell him
Does
like, "Oh,
he?
let's
Okay.
go." He's like, "I can only run in the afternoon," because he's used to that schedule from school. And I
Okay.
hate to run in the afternoon, but I will with him. Um, yeah.
Mhm.
So he's mostly an
Yeah.
afternoon runner.
Now, would Ben ever run with you?
Yeah. So Ben, I feel like he wants to be part of the pack. So he did a 5K, the Grinch 5K in town around Christmas, and he
Okay.
ran with
That's
Tony.
cute.
And Tony said on like
He did,
mile
okay.
2, he laid down on someone's front lawn and he was like, "Why would anybody do this?"
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. What even?
And he did 1 miler this weekend. When Travis did the 5K, he did the 1 miler with Tony. And he
Yeah.
actually won. So he was excited about that. Yeah.
Good. That's cool. Yeah, I have like little because my gym is right here. So my like in my home gym. I have like plastic weights that I give my
Mm,
kids, and whenever I'm lifting, they usually like to lift with me too.
let's see.
So, I didn't know how much they like, obviously they watch
They
everything you
do.
do, so I wasn't sure like how interested they were in running, but that's cute. I think it's funny. I would have been like Ben. I would have been laying on the ground too. I have not trained for running in so long. I really should. I really should train for like a 5K. I feel like
Yeah.
that would get me like back into it again.
We'll have to pick one
Um,
out.
yeah, I was gonna do the 3 threes one last month, and then that fell through. I told Summer, I'm like, I'm gonna run with Dana. I know she already had signed up, and she's like, I don't know if I could do that one, and I was like, well, like when you hear when I heard her, I was like, oh, I can't do it then.
Well, we're gonna all sign up.
She could. Yeah,
Yeah.
we should because we did really good
Yeah.
last year. So yeah. So what would you say is like the most chaotic aside from all the sports right now, like one of like the most chaotic moments for you balancing motherhood with your job?
Uh, just staying on top of things. It's
Mhm.
like either the house is clean and I'm not caught up on work, or I'm caught up on work and the house is a mess and I wasn't able to go to some sort of event. So I would say just balancing everything is really, really tough for me in this phase.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I feel the same way when it comes to my house. Right now I'm in my basement and I'm just looking at all of the toys that are just literally everywhere. And I'm just thinking about how upstairs there's dog hair all over.
Mhm. Same.
But I'm like, priorities right now. Like I love doing the podcast, so I'm gonna, put it aside for a minute and then I'll go deal with it after I'm done this.
That's good. I'm still working on it.
you
More
know?
time.
Yeah, right. um, so if you're comfortable with sharing this, can you tell me about the moment in motherhood where life completely shifted and everything changed for you and your family?
Sure. Yeah. So, just shared a lot about my career, but when I decided to apply at Stockton, I was very excited. I'll never forget. I went to interview on campus, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is such a beautiful campus! Like I could totally envision myself here." And
Mhm.
then I didn't really hear anything. That was in April, and I didn't hear anything until June. So in the meantime, the school year ended, and my younger son Ben came home from school, and he had what I thought was COVID. So this was 2022 when we were just getting out of, masks and everything like that at school. He
Mhm.
had a fever and a cough, and he hadn't gotten COVID yet. So I just assumed it was COVID. Um, Brought
Mhm.
him to his pediatrician, and the pediatrician was tested him for flu, strep, COVID. They were all negative, but was like, I think that sounds like Ben has some fluid in his lungs. I want you to go get an X-ray to see if he could have pneumonia. So we went to the local urgent care, AMI lunch, Atlantic Care, and they did an X-ray, and they immediately told me, yes, he definitely has fluid in his lungs, so they'll probably put him on antibiotics. So the doctor was like, yes, we'll put him on antibiotics. I just want you to come back in 10 days for a lung check. So we went back in 10 days for a lung check, and they were like, Ben's lungs sound clear, but we think we might hear a slight heart murmur. We're not 100% sure, but we think that we hear one. So why don't you follow up with cardiology? So, of course, I called Children's Hospital Philadelphia cardiology, and they couldn't see us for about 4 to 6 weeks. So I called the pediatrician back, and they were like, yeah, we're not even really sure if we hear one, but we just want to make sure that he has an appointment. Uh, in
Mhm.
the meantime, Ben was not himself. Like he just, as I shared, he's very energetic, and, he wasn't eating the same. He was getting frequent infections, getting sick very often,
Mhm.
really tired and lethargic. So school was done, and I think we had like a week off, and then we had this CCD camp in the summer. So he did the CCD
Mhm.
camp, and he came home from CCD camp with a full lunchbox and wasn't himself. And then he had a fever in the middle of the night. So I was like, you know what? I'm bringing him to the emergency room. I think that he might, the pneumonia may have come back and he needs an antibiotic. So I brought him to the
Mhm.
local emergency room. And the doctor that was on that evening, this was like at 2 a.m. She was like, are you okay if I do blood work? He looks pale to me. And I'm like, sure, not thinking anything other than his pneumonia was
Mhm.
back. And I'll
Yeah.
never forget, she came back to the room and she was like, this is a nurse. He's going to sit with your son. Can you please come with me to the next room that's unoccupied? And in my head, I was like, why? Like, what's going on? And so, like,
Yeah.
she had me sit down on a stretcher, and she was like, I think your son has cancer. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, his hemoglobin is a 6. Like, he needs blood immediately. She was like, his white blood cells are very low. And unless someone tells me he doesn't have cancer, all the signs are pointing that he does have cancer. So I never, like, I vividly remember they told us that we weren't allowed to drive him to Children's Hospital Philadelphia. An ambulance had to take us, which I was in the moment, I was like, it would just be so much more comfortable for him to be in our car.
Yeah.
It's unsafe. So we had to wait for an ambulance to get there. And I remember that was very traumatic for him. He was just like, mommy, why are we here? Why are
What's going on?
and so, yeah, they brought us to CHOP and we were met by hematologists and oncologists who were very optimistic. They were like, we don't see any blasts in your son's blood. His platelets are rock solid. We really don't think this is cancer. We think it's some sort of infection. So it was a long journey
Mhm.
to his diagnosis, but basically we were inpatient
Yeah.
for 3 days. He required 2 units of blood, which brought his hemoglobin up again to a safe level. And then a hematologist said to us, if we felt as though this was cancer, we would do a bone marrow biopsy immediately, but we really don't think that it is. We think this is something autoimmune. So
Hmm.
they did a bunch of testing and sent us home. They suspected that it was something called TEC, which is a childhood anemia, and something else called autoimmune neutropenia, which essentially is like decreased immunity. So they did these tests, which took about 3 to 4 weeks for the results to come back. And in the meantime, we had to go to the local CHOP in Voorhees, which is close to us, once a week for labs.
Yeah.
And all of his labs were trending the right way. He was making red blood cells again, baby red blood cells, which are called reticulocytes, and all of his numbers were trending up. So we were so excited. And then we had an appointment with a hematologist at CHOP, and I'll never forget, she was like, oh my goodness, this is such wonderful news. Ben tested positive for autoimmune neutropenia. She gave me a hug. She's like, this is so wonderful. This means he doesn't have cancer, that sort of thing. She was
Mhm.
like, we're still going to have you continue to take 2-week labs just to be sure that his numbers are still increasing, but we just expect that this will resolve over time. And so we went back for the 2-week blood work, and no sooner did we leave than I got a phone call from the hematologist, and she was like, is Ben acting okay? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, his hemoglobin decreased again. She was like, if it decreases even more in 2 more days, he's going to need another unit of blood. So we brought him back up to CHOP Philly. It decreased more. He needed a unit of blood. And then she said, let's wait a little bit longer. And at that point, my husband was like, no, we need
Yeah, no.
on do a bone marrow biopsy. The
Yeah.
next day, we did a bone marrow biopsy, and our hematologist was on vacation, but we had another hematologist that came in to talk to us. And after he did the bone marrow aspirate, he was like, oh, I looked at Ben's marrow under the microscope. I don't see any blasts. I really don't think this is cancer. It's probably something autoimmune, and we'll call you back in a week or so with results. So we leave Philly. As soon as we pull into the driveway, CHOP starts calling again. So Tony and I went on the front porch, and the hematologist was like, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to tell you this. It is actually cancer. And, you're going to need to come back tomorrow and we'll figure out the treatment plan for your son.
Oh,
So in the meantime, I was like, I just left my job. I literally just signed a contract, literally.
yeah.
Just before.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was like, should I see if I can get my job back at Hamilton? Like, am I making the right decision? But I truly believe it was God, because Stockton was so flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then basically the next day we went back, and uh, from what I understood, well, the hematologist was expect to pack things for 5 days. You'll probably be here about 5 to 7 days. So when we met with the oncologist, Dr. Elgarden, I'll never forget, she was great, but she was very blunt. And she was like,
Mhm.
expect to live here for the next 8 months or so. Your son has AML, acute myeloid leukemia, which, requires inpatient stays. You'll have little breaks home in between. And she was just very,
It's very by the book. Like,
very
she
blunt.
was just
And
like,
I get that. But at the same time, I was like, whoa, like, can someone take Ben out of the room here? I don't want him to kind of hear
yeah.
all of the specifics
Yeah.
about his diet.
It kind of sounds like a
Yeah.
script. Like she almost was like reading you
Yeah.
a script. Like she's probably said this to how many other families in there, and it's just, here's another family. Let me read them the script
Yeah.
of what what life's gonna look like. And like you said, you get that at the same time. It's like, wait a second,
Yes.
hold on.
I need to
Like
process.
he was only
Yes.
6, right?
Yes. He was
At the
nice.
time.
Yeah.
So like I think about like my daughter is 5.
Yeah.
Like I would be like, okay, we need to Gino and I will be removed from the room and we could talk out there.
Yes.
But yeah, God, you can continue because this is Crazy.
Yeah, so that was it. And then we were inpatient. I'll never forget that it was very strange. They put us in this fishbowl room. So it was like this glass room. And they're like, we're going to wait until we get your room ready upstairs, almost like you're at a hotel. And we walk in, and our first room that we were in was this teeny tiny room. And they were like, oh, you'll probably be in
Mhm.
this room for about 30 days. And I was like, 30 days? Like, it was smaller than, it was probably the size of Ben's room, and his room was pretty small. So teeny tiny,
Like a bedroom, yeah.
fold up cot that we would unfold at night to sleep on because there was nothing to sleep
God.
on. And we had no natural sunlight. He literally was over the emergency department. So for 30 days at night, we would hear infants crying, moms yelling.
Yeah.
It was really, really tough. And yeah, so he did 5 rounds of treatment, and a lot went on throughout that process that was really challenging. But he rang the bell in February 2023, and he's been in.
I remember that
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
And he's been in remission since then.
Yes. So we go, initially it was every month, because of the particular type of leukemia he had. There is a higher chance of relapse. So initially it was every month. Then they moved us to every 3 months, and now we're at every 6 months. So, which is really
Okay.
exciting.
Yeah. So kind of going back to the beginning here, um, life kind of changed for you in a blink of an eye. It was like, especially because you were getting answers that sounded accurate. So then your mind is going, okay, we're good. We're in like the safe zone. And then it's like you pull in the driveway and like they're like, nope, turn around. Like I feel like that's just so, I don't know, it's not messed up, but it is messed up. Like it's almost like how many people did it take to like get this wrong for a while, and then I probably would be thinking now, how long did we have before to potentially start treatment? Like, are we behind the ball?
Yeah,
Right? Like,
I did
did
feel
that
like
go
it.
through your head at
I
all?
did feel like that, but and I think I felt like that for a while, but then as I started to learn more and more about Ben's diagnosis, it is so rare. So only about
Uh-huh.
children are diagnosed with it annually in North America. So
Okay.
because of that, I think that it's not a diagnosis that's on everyone's radar. It's kind of like we
Mhm.
look for specific signs for the more common leukemias like ALL,
Yeah. Okay.
classic leukemia. So for things like that, those signs are a little bit easier to define. So I think that they would assume that first, but because it was a little bit more rare, it can be harder for that to be diagnosed. And there are actually a lot of stories of children who, unfortunately, it is such a fast moving cancer that it fills your marrow very quickly. And then eventually it starts to pull over and shut down organs. So there are stories where
Okay.
children it comes on very rapidly and they do have organ failure because of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely initially was like, oh my goodness, we could have started treatment earlier, but everyone kept saying you caught this really early because of your intuition that you had as a mother and because you were
Yeah.
consistent. So and I actually, initially when I thought about that emergency room doctor, I was angry at her. And I remember I was like, I want to call her and just say, you caused me all of this stress. And now they're telling me it's not cancer. But really, she was right. She
Yeah, like
knew.
she called it
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
start, day one. I remember that day. I remember when Summer texted me and said, Dana was just told that Ben might have cancer. And I was just like, no, he does not. Like, there's no way. Like, and did you ever think like you see this happen to so many people? Like, like, was your head ever saying this would never happen to me? Or like this wouldn't happen to us? Like, this is what happens to other people. This is what happens on TV. This isn't what happens to us. Like, this isn't gonna happen
Yeah,
here.
totally. I mean,
Right.
I definitely ignored the St. Jude commercials. I would change a channel because they're so hard to watch. They're so
They're so
depressing.
hard to
Yeah.
watch. Yeah.
And I just kept saying there has to be a rational answer for this. Like there's no way that my child has cancer. He's full of energy. He's,
Yeah.
and looking back, when I look at pictures of him, I can visibly tell that he is sick. But I think I was initially in such a state of denial. I didn't believe that he was sick. And I kept saying, this isn't real. I didn't believe that we were living it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's very common. It's like a kind of a defense thing too. It's just like, no, like you don't want to take your mind to those places because why would you want to? You're not trying to spiral. But at the same time, it's like, okay, maybe we should have looked into this. Like, when you look back, you're like, oh, like I should have saw these. Like I knew these signs were here. I just didn't want to believe them. What kind of little signs did he have at first that? like looking back, you can like see?
Yeah, so he had a skin infection. He had staph. So we brought him in for antibiotics to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician gave him antibiotics. Then the pharmacy actually messed up and didn't have him on the correct dosage, so wound up coming back. So there was
Okay.
that. Then he started to develop rashes. So he would get rashes on
Okay.
his face and his trunk. So summer, my sister-in-law had allergies. So I was like consulting her. I'm like, oh my goodness, like, is he developing a foodborne allergy? Like something's going on. So I brought him to an
Hmm.
allergist. The allergist did a bunch of tests and she was like, oh, he has something called hivism where he's just very susceptible to hives. And he also has an allergy to dogs, dust, and Bermuda grass. And
Hmm.
so we had both of those things going on. And then he was getting sick frequently. But he was also in kindergarten, and I feel like kids do get sick often.
A lot.
But
Yeah.
now those signs together, like rashes are a sign of leukemia. Frequent
Hmm.
infections is a sign of leukemia. Ammonia
Okay.
is a sign of leukemia. And, a lot of children have all of these things, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they have leukemia, but I kind of wish that maybe the pediatrician would have seen all of this combination of things and then maybe said, oh, this is a lot of infections. Maybe we should, because really you don't get blood work, right? Unless you request for it.
Yeah.
I request for it for my older son, and they're like, oh, why? And I'm like, well, I just think
Uh,
it's good to have a look at their numbers. You really don't get labs, so you really don't know
I don't
what's going
know.
on inside of their bodies.
Yeah, like my kids we get them done when they turned
Yeah.
1, and then I think like I don't think they're due again till they're like
Yeah.
11 or 7 or
Yeah.
8 or
It's a
something like
long
that. I'm
time.
like, it's a long time. So I do think that that's a little strange that they wait so long.
Yes. I think
I
so
think
too.
that that should be. Now, you had another son, Travis, who was home for this. How did you try to adapt as best you could to devote your time as much as you could to both of them? Because it's almost feeling like sacrificing one for another when you're in that situation.
Yeah, it was really tough. So fortunately, my first year at Stockton, my first semester, I was 100% online. So I
Okay.
was all online, and all of my courses, I was able to do everything from the hospital, which was amazing. Um,
Hmm.
but Tony was able to take leave. They had donated sick leave for him, so he was able to take off, and we would rotate. So I would stay the majority of the week in the hospital overnight with Ben, and then Tony would come during the day to visit, but then he would usually stay over on Tuesday nights into Wednesdays and then come back on the weekends overnight. And I would come home to Travis. So
Okay.
Travis, he was 8, and it was obviously so much for him to process. And, we're such a close, tight knit family unit. We're always together. And so for to be
Yeah.
separated like that, it was really tough. The first few weeks he spent living with my mother-in-law in summer too, because Tony stayed in the hospital with us just until we got into a rhythm. So I definitely think
Hmm.
for him, it was a sense of separation. He wanted to sleep in my bed again. I think just because he felt insecure. Obviously,
Close to you. He wanted to be close.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Ben was very immunocompromised. So he wore a mask at home because he was at school. And that was really frustrating for him. And it was frustrating for him to understand, like my brother and I, they're like two bear cubs. They're constantly wrestling and
Yeah.
doing it. Ben had this
Yeah.
phobiac port in his chest, and it was very
Yeah.
dangerous to get ripped out. And also, like, Ben was very immunocompromised, so they couldn't really be on top of each other. So I felt like I was constantly chastising Travis, but really developmentally, like he didn't understand. So
Yeah.
it was really challenging. Definitely.
Yeah. I feel like that is probably like a mother's worst nightmare. Like
Yeah.
truly. And you are so strong for getting through that.
Thank you.
And I remember this so vividly. I remember hearing every day I was getting updates and I was just like I just wanted to hug you and I had worked with someone whose daughter had AML. She was diagnosed at 6 months. And I remember when Ben got diagnosed, I called her right away and I was like, "Can you give me the rundown on what happened with you?" And she sent me all of her notes from when she was first in the hospital. And her daughter, I believe, is now 11. I think she's as old as Travis, and she has been in remission
That's
since she
amazing.
was, I think, 11 months old, I
Wow.
want to
That's
say.
amazing.
Yeah, she came home. But she had the same diagnosis. And uh, yeah, I just remember that so vividly. So you are so, so, so strong for all this. And I'm so glad that you were able to share that. When you share this story, does it feel does it feel a little therapeutic sharing it now? Like like talking about it from it being so long ago and like being able to like kind of take a little bit of a breath over it.
Yeah, I definitely think for me, and everyone processes things differently, but talking about it does help. I also teach a class at Stockton undergrad. It's called
Mm-hmm.
Perspectives of Caregiving. So
Okay.
that class talks about caregiving from birth to casket. But I
Okay.
talk a lot about my experiences as being the caregiver for Ben during his diagnosis. And initially, it was really hard for me to talk about, and I would tear up constantly anytime anybody asked me a question. But now
Yeah.
it is therapeutic and it helps you to process it. So, yeah.
Yeah. How did you really like start to move forward aside from talking with it? Like once about it, like once he rang the bell and you were able to process again, how did you really move forward
So
with
it's
everything?
funny because I remember everyone texting me when Ben rang the bell and they were like, oh my goodness, you must be so happy to have your life back and this and that. And so from when Ben initially became sick, which was the beginning of July until the following February, I was running
Mm-hmm.
off of pure adrenaline. Like it was literally
Yeah.
pure adrenaline because we weren't sleeping. The hospital, they were in the room constantly because he had vitals every 4 hours. And then he had to have eye drops put in his eyes every 4 hours. And, there was just, and he had like a blood infection in between. And it was a roller coaster. There was just so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
And even when
Yeah.
we were home for our breaks, I was still an anxious wreck and I wasn't sleeping well. So for that entire time, I operated off of adrenaline. And then as soon as he rang the bell, I had time to process. So I would say the year after treatment was harder for
Mm-hmm.
me than him being on treatment because the
Yeah.
nervous system had to catch up with what just
Yeah.
happened. And I was in a constant state of anxiety. It was really, really tough. And then also, I remember I met this one mom when we go to DC and she talked about how when she thinks about the diagnosis, it's almost like it stares at you from the front window of your house. And so it's like, initially it was there constantly, the fear of relapse, the fear of
Yeah.
relapse. And every month we were going for labs for 6 months. And so it was like, oh my goodness, like we're a couple weeks away from labs. Like, what if his numbers are off? Or anytime that he coughs or
Mhm.
sneezes, even still, anytime that he starts to get sick or he bruises or this or that, I'm like, oh, how
Yeah.
did you get that bruise? Or do you feel
Yeah.
okay? Or, so
You like look into
look into
everything.
everything
Like
so much.
if he sleeps too
We take,
much or if he's
yeah,
yeah, you're like, "You good? You
yeah,
good?" Yeah, I would feel the same way. I even sometimes I'm just like, "What are you guys sleeping for so long for?
yeah,
Are you okay? Like,
yes,
you feeling okay?" And I think it's too because like I with summer I was like hearing about this all the time, so I was like looking for
yes,
symptoms in my
yes,
kids. I feel like that's just something you do as a mom. You're just like, okay, I'm gonna really pay attention to my kids, and I feel like nowadays it's becoming a lot more common, and I
yes,
feel like that's kind of where you jumped to becoming an advocate
yes.
for it. So can you expand a little bit on like how that started for you and like your I know you went to the Capitol and also like can you
Yeah,
tell
sure.
us a little bit
So,
about
when Ben was in the hospital, and we started with the school reintegration process, I was not really happy with the way that it was going. So initially, when I called to tell the school that Ben was sick, the only message that I was receiving is every day the phone call to let me know that he was out sick. So every day we're inpatient. He's very, very sick at this point, and from the chemo, he had a lot of side effects from the chemo, and so every day I would receive this phone call reminder, like, yes, I know my son is not in school. He has cancer right now. And it's
obviously.
like
Yeah.
it was a terrible reminder. So I called them. I'm like, can you please remove us off of this list, number one? And number two, like, what's it going to look like in terms of Ben receiving support? And they were like, well, we could pay you to be his tutor. And I was like, pay me to be his tutor. Like right now I'm forcing him to take his pills. I'm holding him down for listening
Yeah.
changes. Like the last thing I want to do is tutor him right now with academics. And he's not going to listen to me
Yeah.
anyway because he's mad at me
No.
making him take all these meds.
Yeah.
Um,
And a mom is not supposed to be a teacher for
no,
like their kid's teacher.
no,
Like I've seen that. Me even just trying to do little things
yeah,
with Lena. I'm like, no, I'm never going to be your teacher
yeah,
ever.
because they put up a fight with us. They do.
They do. They know they can get away with it.
Yeah. So that process was not great. And I was like, wow, I'm surprised at this process. I know that childhood cancer is somewhat of a rare diagnosis, but I'm surprised that there's no protocol for these students. So that was tough. And then Ben was asked to be the St. Baldrick's honor child for the year at Folsom School that
Mhm.
holds an amazing event every year and raises a significant amount of funding for childhood cancer research. And so I was speaking to one of the individuals that works for the organization who also had a son that had leukemia. And I was like, oh, I really want to get involved with this. Are there any types of opportunities to advocate? And she was like, actually, we have a group that goes to Washington, D.C. every year. Like, would you be interested in doing that? And I was like,
Mhm.
absolutely. Like, as soon as Ben is, out of treatment and we're in a safe zone, I would love to go. So I've gone 3 times so far, and we go, and essentially the first day we meet in a conference room, and members from the National Cancer Registry, National Cancer Institute, sorry, and National Institute on Health come in, and they talk about all of the updates with childhood cancer and different types of advances and also barriers. And then the second day, we actually go onto the Capitol, and we meet with congressmen, and we discuss, and senators, what we are advocating for as a group. And the things that we
Mhm.
advocate for is better access to care. So if we look at children that are on Medicaid, like for instance, if your child was diagnosed with cancer and you lived in South Jersey and you had Medicaid and you wanted to go to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, you can't. You can't just cross state lines. You have to fill out a significant amount of
Mhm.
paperwork. It takes a significant amount of time, and children with cancer don't have that option to wait. They also,
No, you
yeah,
can't. It takes like a month for that to even
yeah,
go
a
through
long time.
too.
So
At minimum a month, I would
yeah.
say. Yeah.
So that's really tough. And then they also have difficulty accessing clinical trials, which is really challenging.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we advocate for that. We advocate for more research. There's not enough research about childhood cancer. There's really
No.
underfunded. And we also advocate for additional treatments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause chemo essentially, like, tears your body apart,
Yeah.
right? Like, it kind of just, like it can affect all different things in your future
Yes.
also, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
95% of childhood cancer survivors will have a significant health related issue by the time they're 45. So 95%. And that's a
Okay.
significant issue. So a lot of,
It's huge. Yeah, that's, like, almost
yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Um, what other kind of stats do you have related to it?
yeah. So my
Maybe
dissertation,
can
so that's what kind of, I was, the
Yeah.
school reintegration
Let's hear about
process
the
is like,
dissertation.
oh, it's not great. I want to learn more about it. So I started to go back for my
Mhm.
doctorate, and that's what I focused my dissertation on. So currently finish
Mhm.
up chapter 3, which is going in front of the institutional review board right now, which is really exciting. And then after that, I can a
Okay.
survey. Yeah. So
Good. I'm super excited for you. That's
yeah,
great.
so it's been a long
Yeah.
time, almost 3 years so far.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm focusing on the reintegration process. So what do families and caregivers, what do they experience during the process? Do they feel like their child is being given enough academic support, enough psychosocial support, enough emotional support? Are the teachers getting training on how to support the child? Are there specific accommodations like allowing them to wear a hat if they have hair loss, or providing them extended time on tests, or maybe a shortened school day? So just kind of about
Mhm.
what their overall experiences are like. But when I
Mhm.
did my deep dive into that, I talked a lot about the prevalence of childhood cancer and long-term impacts. But currently, one in
Mhm.
285 children will be diagnosed with childhood cancer. As I shared earlier, 95% will have a significant health-related issue by the time they're 45. So a lot of times it could be cardiomyopathy. So best to
Mhm.
have an echocardiogram and EKG. I believe it's every year now, because he is at risk for developing long-term heart effects because of some of the chemos that he received. One of them was called the Red Devil donirubicin. Um,
Okay.
yeah, they're also less likely to finish high school or obtain a higher education degree.
Mhm.
67% of the survivors experience attention dysfunction, and 3 to 28% memory deficits. And another study that I referenced, 43% of parents reported that their child experienced difficulties reintegrating into school. So
Yeah.
definitely would benefit from having more supports during that process, but a lot of long-term cognitive and emotional impacts for these children.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of schools should offer more for these kids, and I know it's not something you wanna think about, but it's something that is it's a reality, and it's definitely should be something that is put in place, I think.
Yes, having a specific
Um,
protocol in place and, because yes, it is rare, but we're seeing more and more. We're seeing more
yeah.
and more children diagnosed with cancer. So just having that protocol in place to support them, support their families and the teacher, right? Because teachers don't know how to
No.
support a child with cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say to parents who feel worried about this but don't know where to really begin? Like what would you say? Like who should they talk to first about
Yeah,
this?
so it's tough because we do live in one of the best regions in the country for healthcare. So Children's Hospital Philadelphia is very comprehensive. They had a social worker come
Yep.
talk to us, then receive occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, art therapy, music therapy, psychiatrists when we were inpatient, all of those services. And not all
Hmm.
hospitals offer that, but I would say the
Yeah.
first step is a social worker. So talk to the social worker and make them aware of the challenges that you're facing because there are a lot of great programs out there for families, financial assistance, emotional assistance, even something as simple as they gave us parking vouchers because parking at shops, sometimes my parking would be $96 because I would have to leave my vehicle
Wow.
there overnight.
Yeah.
They have a lot of different resources that can support financially and then also the transition back to school. They can communicate with the school and things like that. So I would say that first, definitely contact the social worker. But uh,
So you would get one as once he got diagnosed, he was assigned
yes.
one. You're saying, right? Okay, so everyone gets
Yeah.
one. So that's really good to
Yeah.
have.
And then
Um,
also, we're a part of a support group called Oncology. And on that support group, they have subgroups for every different type of cancer. So you can connect with other. That was really helpful for me because there wasn't a lot of children on the floor that had AML. When Ben had AML,
Same
maybe
one.
like one or two. But when I met
Okay.
families online that had AML and also had the same genetic makeup as Ben, that was really helpful. I still talk to them a lot and we bounce
Yeah.
questions back and forth. So that was really, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to have support in that kind of way also. And then obviously family, having your
Yeah.
village just to get through. And it's so great that your job was so had the leisure of working 100% remote. So you were able to essentially work. And one other thing, did you actually have a treadmill in the
I
room?
did. Yeah, I'll never yeah.
I knew you did.
So when Ben got sick, that's when I was training for my first marathon. So it
Okay.
was like I vividly remember like we didn't know his diagnosis. I knew that he was sick. And I would run and process and cry a lot. But I'll never forget, I was like, okay, well, I have to put the marathon on hold. That's okay. But I
Mhm.
still needed to move. And it was really he
Yeah.
was
Especially being
yeah,
trapped in a
yeah.
room.
And he
Yeah.
didn't feel comfortable with me leaving the room. So this is when those walking
Uh,
pads were first coming out. Um, so
uh-huh.
I remember I wheeled one through the security and he looked, what is that? And I didn't say anything. I just kept going. I was like, I'm going back to my
Uh-huh.
room and I'm going to bring this in here.
Uh-huh.
So at shift change, when the nurses would change at 7 a.m., I would be running and they would be like, okay, these are the updates.
They probably had their other little nurse
Yeah.
station. They were probably like the mom with that runs in room,
Yes.
whatever Ben,
Totally.
the one whose mom is always
Yes.
running. Yeah, go to that room and take his
It's
vitals.
hilarious.
That's so great. But like you had to have some kind of
Yes.
normalcy,
Yes.
right? Like you had to try to keep some kind and to keep yourself sane because it's not like they have a gym. Do they have a gym there? Because I don't. Do they have a
So
gym there?
that was that's something that they're working on now. So right now they're building a
Okay.
new tower. It's going to be huge. And it's supposed to be done
Okay.
in 2027 and they're going to have
Okay.
more space for parents. So they're going to have a gym for parents, they're going to have more family rooms. So that way
Okay.
siblings can visit comfortably and things like that. They didn't really have a lot of that. And I guess when it was initially built, they didn't realize like a lot of times they didn't even have enough beds because that's how full they
Yeah.
were. So this will be much more expanded. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was really nice to hear all of that. Um that I learned a lot just now. I knew some of this, but hearing all these statistics and your travels like firsthand from you, I'm always hearing it from Summer. It's really cool to hear everything that you're doing, and I love that you are a voice for children everywhere, and you're trying to be. So if anyone is listening who is wants to hear more, this is a great spot to start. I love what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And thank you for providing the opportunity to be here. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, let's close this out real quick with some fun rapid fire
Okay.
questions. Okay, so I already knew the first. I already know the first answer, but I have to ask anyway. Would you prefer a morning run or an evening
Morning,
run?
100%.
Yeah. So you have the most energy in the morning, like you would rather just do
Oh,
that.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you guys love to go camping, your family, you, Tony, and the boys. What is one thing your family always forgets when you go camping? Is there anything
Ooh,
you guys always
marshmallow sticks, always.
marshmallow
Yeah.
sticks? You know, I that was the very first time we got our we have like a fire pit
Yeah.
upstairs, like outside, and I bought all the stuff and
Nobody
never
understands.
had
Yeah.
sticks. Yeah. Called my mom. I was like, any chance you have marshmallow sticks? And I was like, the kids want s'mores. I can't just throw them
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
fire.
I always
It's a good
forget
one.
those.
Um, what is your favorite home cooked meal?
Ooh, macaroni and meatballs, Sunday dinner,
Yeah.
definitely.
Sunday
Yeah.
dinner. It's such a hearty meal.
Yes.
Such a hearty meal. What are your favorite running sneakers?
Hoka, 100%. I have tried to
Okay.
switch because I'm like, I
Mm,
don't need to be faithful to one brand, but they are my hands down favorite. I've tried several.
yeah, nice. I've heard good things about Hoka.
Yes.
And then lastly, what is the most boy mom injury you have ever dealt with?
Oh God. So Ben is always, we're always at the emergency room with Ben. Always. I'll tell him, like the other day, he climbed on top of the swing set to jump from the top of the swing set to the trampoline. I was like, I am not going to the emergency
No,
room tonight. So just
no.
don't.
Yeah.
So we had two pretty close. One was Travis was chasing him. Ben fell on his bed and needed stitches above his eyebrow. Another time,
Okay.
Ben was practicing golf in the backyard and went behind my neighbors. She was swinging the golf club and he had a huge knot on his head. We had to go to the emergency room for that. So, yeah. And also, Tony, this summer we were water skiing and a water ski flew up and hit Tony in the head while he's my husband still. Boy injury, slapped his head
Yeah, boy
open,
injury.
had to go get medical glue. So I feel like we're always dealing with injuries.
Yeah. The one thing I saw on Instagram was a reel, and it was a video of a mom who was recording her three kids going down the slide together, and they were like backwards, upside down. And she was recording it because, and the caption said, "I'm recording this so this way, when we're in the ER, I can show the doctor exactly how it
Yes.
happened." And the glue thing, so above the eyebrow, Lena actually just last week. This is a girl injury, which kind of could have been a boy injury too. She was on her stool in her bathroom brushing her teeth, and she went to step down, tripped over the baby's insert tub that I have that goes in the tub and hit her eyebrow right here on the toilet, and we had to go to the ER and have it glued, and that was our first ER visit for an injury for her. So I knew I had to ask you that because I know I have, having two boys, I know it's coming. I know it's coming. Yeah. Well, that's all I have for you today. I am so thankful and grateful that you joined me here. I hope anyone that's listening took a lot of this and listened with care, because this was, hard to listen to, but Ben is doing wonderful. You look great.
You
You
too.
are doing wonderful, and everything you're doing is awesome. So any final words? We good?
Thank you so
Had a
much
great
for
time.
providing me this opportunity, and thank you for all that you do. And it's so
Yeah.
important to hear diverse perspectives from parents and moms, just in different phases of life. And so
Yeah.
thank you for everything.
Yeah. Thank you for the boy mom injuries
Yes.
too. I'm going to keep those in my mind. I'm sure I've got them coming. So for anyone listening, please follow, like, subscribe on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Holding the Harvest